Yo, another day in the lab, baby. So it's always a good day. It's always a good day when we in the lab. You want policing to be better in your communities? The best policing that you can that can happen in any community are people that's actually from the community and that.
Once again, Rick, host BNY Podcast, now known as What Effing Week with BNY. Dev, how you feeling, man?
I'm in here.
It's good comment section.
Yeah.
Do we drag our people down when sometimes they don't deserve it? For sure, absolutely. In this situation, this man deserves every single dragging that we can do because this is not an example of us.
But you got the angles. You got the knowledge of the game, bro.
This is where you're getting at, the IQ.
Down. Like he's telling you what's going on. How he was a bad husband. How he was just doing things his way. He's apologizing to his wife like, yo.
Pat ourselves on the back for that one because we didn't give yourself awards. I mean, who is?
Yeah, no boy.
Hey. Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. If you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up in the chat. And we're live. What's good, DMV, BNY Network. Commissioner Bolin, or BJ for podcast purposes. How you doing? Every time you make that face, every time I say that.
What's that?
Commissioner Bolin.
You can call me anything you want.
You sure?
Oh, I don't know about that. It's good to be here again. I appreciate the opportunity, all joking aside, to have a voice to be able to get out there and just talk to people and have a real constructive conversation. It's open to everybody. I mean, really nothing's... I mean, as long as you're respectful, I'll try my best to answer your questions and anybody online. And, of course, I'll give you my opinion.
Okay.
And I'm sure we'll have, differing opinions as we always do and should expect.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we remain respectful and respect each other, I think it's democracy in action,
Hey, come on now. Now. Yeah, you've been up here. This is your third appearance.
Yeah, it's good to have somewhere you can come where the host, and I'm not just saying this because you're sitting in front of me, but you listen to people, you try to maintain that news, that media neutral, just seeking the truth, and I'm all about that. Challenge me. That's why I say challenge me on my positions, and you might not like my answer, but I'll give you the best I can give you.
And you showed up too, so.
Of course.
Yeah, it's been easy getting always getting to sit in the commissioner.
Oh no! I think it's good anytime you can get in front of people. I think it's a really good thing. It shows transparency. You can talk it, but if you're not walking the walk, then that's really selling the folks short that you're serving. And you've been very hospitable, shall I say? And I knew tonight might be a long night, so I dressed comfortably with my cap sweater on.
Caps representing the home team.
Absolutely.
Always love to see it. Yeah.
So I look forward to starting to answer questions and letting this go where it may go.
All right, let's get it from there. So before we begin, if you're watching the pod, please hit this like button, but share it with the community, share it with everyone out there. So we got a few comments here. Charles County Democrats Against Charter, how you doing? Thank you very much for also sharing the podcast earlier this week. Definitely appreciate it. Comments we will read. Some comments we may not get to, but for those who have my number 2, text me on the side. I'll try my best to make sure we reach everything tonight. What we got? We're looking forward to a civil chat with our name calling our attacks. We can do this community. Well, I hope so. We're all adults here, right?
Yeah, I think that you can have an opinion, express it, and not have to categorize or name call people. I think that really, and honestly, if you were in a position of influence, you don't just have to be an elected official to be a person of influence. I think you lose credibility when you start name calling, you start just not handle it in a civil manner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, we can have a difference of opinion and we can still be friends. It's just, I just don't agree with you on this. And tomorrow there's going to be something, it could be something we agree on. And you don't want to destroy relationships just based on politics, I hate to say, but it's the way this country has gone sometimes, and it's not a good place to be.
Yeah. So see what we can do our little part here in Charles
Absolutely.
County. So we got DT. Go on. What you got?
No, forgive me for for the folks watching. Forgive me for looking sideways. I'm watching the comments on the big TV. That's why I'm looking that way when I'm talking sometimes.
Got you. And the AC's out. We got the door open. Got that beautiful Southern Maryland air coming through here.
The Southern Maryland air smells great tonight. No cows out there, and pigs. So
welcome to D2.
Absolutely.
I hear you work here part time also.
Wow. I love the whole community. I do spend some time in District 2.
Hey,
Yes.
hey, good to have you here. All right, let's keep setting the table before we actually get there. Hello, Angela, what's going on? DT, how you doing?
It is a little
Had the
humid.
FOP in the building, how you doing? Yeah, just a little bit. Zebby, Jamie, Voices, how you doing? Good to have you back in here. Glad to see the FOP president made on this podcast. Absolutely, Jamie. Yep, it is a little humid. Yeah. So if we can start off. So last week I had Derek Terry on the podcast. He mentioned your name a couple times on there.
Several times.
Yep, I know. I did see the video, everybody, with Derek Terry, with yourself at the
My town hall up at,
yeah.
I've known Derek
Yeah, if you want to address all
I've known
that
Derek
and go from there.
since I believe about 2017, 16 maybe, when I was on the Central Committee. I think that's when I first met him, and then he ran for office. Derek did 2018 for commissioner. I actually supported him for District 3 commissioner, and I believe we had a friendship. I like to still think we could have somewhat of one. Differences of opinion is, like I said, it's not a reason to end a friendship, but I try not to judge folks for anything, and I can't put myself in his shoes. So he's had experiences I haven't, so I try not to I don't know what the word is for it. Be too critical, because I haven't lived a life in his shoes, but I try to be sympathetic and understanding of different people and different views and different experiences. I just I feel like this charter thing has really taken a mind of its own, so to speak, and I've tried to do my best as one of 5 elected commissioners to try to calm the community down and say, listen, let's just focus on the policies and the issues. And the reality is, even from the beginning, we knew this was going to be a political thing, and we knew it was going to be a campaign, because at the end of the day, it's on the ballot, so it's going to be something that's campaigned either for or against. And I've been upfront, vocal about where my position is. I feel like Commissioner Stewart has been upfront, vocal, and outspoken about being against charter as well. I feel like some of the other commissioners are kind of behind the scenes doing it. Like, they're not saying they're for it, but their actions as far as pushing it forward, as far as the 3-2 vote that creates a charter board. And then, I'm not, completely out of touch. I mean, I do have some thumbs on the community, and I know there's some, I don't know what's the word for it, some shadow campaigns, so to speak, where people are, going to events and stuff and saying they're not talking about it, but they're out there talking about it. And really what is good for this discussion is to have both sides of the charter discussion in the room, to have civil debate, because it's not fair to the community to only hear one side. When we talked to me and you talked about this podcast, and I was all for having either Greg or any elected commissioner. I mean, I really thought it should be a commissioner, because if they voted to push the charter board through, then if you support it, then you should have an opportunity, you should have the ability to defend it. But it didn't work out today. We did have an opportunity out at the Elks Lodge to have what I thought was a pretty good back and forth debate with myself, Commissioner Patterson, and Mr. Waring, and I felt like it got a lot of stuff out. Mr. Waring expressed his side of things. I expressed mine. The public asked questions, and there was a lot of questions that were answered. Now, it happened to happen, or I shouldn't say happened to happen, but we ended up having the county attorney there because a third commissioner showed up, Commissioner Coates. So there were a lot of questions publicly that were answered about whether it was the police department, planning and growth management, some of the laws, some of the procedures of the document of charter, that I was able to ask questions right there to the county attorney, because, people say, oh, he's lying. He's not telling the truth. So I make sure as an elected official that when I say something, I'm as accurate as I can be. So there was an opportunity to talk about the whole police department thing, and the county attorney answered, yeah, they don't have to go back with this charter. They don't have to go back for a referendum to the people, because it didn't put in the charter specifically say the sheriff's department shall be the primary law enforcement agency in the county, because it didn't say that in the charter. Then absolutely the county executive can ask the state legislature, whether it's the Senate or the House, to put a bill in to give them the authority to do a police department. And what's different, and that was proven true, that yes, it doesn't have to go back to the people for a ballot referendum. And what's interesting about that is, when people say, well, you can do it now. Well, yeah, but it's a little different now. Because right now, when we have 5 commissioners that have to agree to send the legislation forward. We have public hearings like we did last Tuesday about state legislative proposals where people hear it and can comment on it. Well, under charter, a county executive can just ask to have a piece of legislation put in. Doesn't have to go to the public. And then all of a sudden they have that authority. And really, when you have control of the day-to-day operations as one person, you can move PIN numbers around. And I say this because I was experienced in when I worked in Prince George's County. Because I know, gosh, I can't mention Prince George's County, but for me, I worked there 22 years. So that's where now if I didn't work there, I could see somebody saying, well, why do you keep referencing them? But I did. I worked there 22 years, and I could see PIN numbers moved around. You could take a PIN from here, there, and they said, well, the council has to approve the budget part, not if they're already existing PINs. And if you have vacancies, say, in plan growth management or in Parks and Rec, you can move those PINs over into a police department, an agency. And so I think where the frustration comes from a lot of folks is some of the pro-charter folks said, take the time to read the charter. So people have taken the time to read the charter. And then they start asking questions. And some folks get very defensive about those questions. And it's like, don't tell folks to read it, then they read it.
Who's getting defensive?
Well, we know some folks are getting defensive, is what I'll say. I don't want to throw out names, but the public...
know we love names
I
here.
know you knew names, but I try to rise above that and just say there are individuals that are supportive of charter. They get very upset when a contradictory opinion is put out there. And I just don't think that's healthy for the public. I don't, because I think that if you're going to write somebody essentially a blank check, so to speak, they need to know that. So, and I'm sure that's going to fire up a bunch of questions here on your page.
So to summarize all that, I guess you're not voting for charter.
No, absolutely not. And I'll tell you why. I'm not voting for this charter because I believe we have the most effective and efficient form of government right now. Is it perfect? No. Do we need change? Yes. We need change in an election. Right now, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of legislation we could get through, whether it's term limits, whether it's removal of a commissioner, whether it's how we spend our money. All we need is another vote. That's it. And I find it very disheartening that some of the commissioners that are for the charter go out and tell the public, and this is part of that shadow campaign. Well, if we had charter, we could do this in PGM. Well, if we had charter, we could have this removal of a commissioner. If we had charter, we can do this accountability. But then they go back into our meetings and they vote contrary to that. So you think to yourself, if you're so for transparency and accountability, why aren't you doing it right now as a sitting elected commissioner? Any commissioner has the same ability as I do to put in agenda items, to put in legislation. But when the people, and see, it's not hard right now to bring legislation forward to your commissioners. Charter, it's going to be a little more cumbersome. You had people that brought in 2 different times legislation to remove a commissioner and demanded it. There must have been 10 proposals on each time they did it. And they just voted it down. And and there are moments in these meetings where I just sit and I stare and I look at them and I'm like, how can you go out into the public and tell them that you support these things and vote them down? It's like they don't think the public is watching. And I think we have a very intelligent populace. And when people, old Chuck County, well, let me say, it is insulting to me because I've lived here my entire life. Now, have there been problems and challenges? Of course. Like any community, we're going to have problems and challenges. I don't want to go back to the past. I want to move forward and progress. But we need to learn from other areas and the mistakes they've made. And make no bones about it. With district voting now, you went from a countywide election where you're trying to get your name out and get where you stand on policy to 170,000 people, to now in 26, where you only have to reach 35 to 40 as a district commissioner. That's going to take a lot of money out of politics. And make no bones about it, money is behind this. They're in the shadows because they know if they come out and say they're supporting it, that it'll kill the charter. But it benefits special interest to be in a charter because now instead of having to go to 5 commissioners, you don't have to go to 1 county executive. And we can talk about the legislative side and the administrative or the executive side. The power in county government lies in the executive side, lies in the day-to-day operation.
You just brought something up. You mentioned special interests.
Right.
As far as money in politics. Isn't that going on right now?
It is. It is. It always will.
And you said challenge you. I'm talking.
No, absolutely challenge me. So
as far as yourself.
So absolutely, and people out there saying, "Well, look, Commissioner Bowling, what money he's raised." And you know what? I have been very successful in fundraising, because when I have these events where I talk to donors, I say, "Listen, you're not investing or saying. I'm not saying that I'm going to vote exactly your way every time.
Mm-hmm.
You're investing in a campaign of good government, of transparency." And I've always, for those watching, I tell folks when they come in with a project or an idea, I say to them, well, if your project is here and the community is here, if your project and what the community wants cross, then we're all good. We're all good. That's easy as pie. But if the community's here and your project's over here and you're like this, you got to get over here to the people. And if you don't, I can't support it. And believe it or not, people respect that. A lot of businesses respect that because you're being upfront, you're being forward. They know where you stand. They know where you're coming from. Now, if you get folks in here that are essentially owned and need this job for the money, they're going to do what's going to get them reelected. And money gets people reelected. So they're and you can see that that's reflective in some of the decisions that have been made over the last 20 to 30 years in our county. And I'm going to be honest with you. If you look over at Indian Head in the base, 20-some years that has been sitting stagnant. In the last 6 years, and I'm not just saying it's because of myself and Commissioner Stewart, but what I'm saying is over the last 6 years...
There's a mayor over there, too.
It's
grown.
And the mayor is exactly it. You have people that are eager and anxious to get things moving in Indian Head at that base, because we know that will drive jobs here. It will drive economic prosperity. And I'll tell you, we had a meeting last week, I think it was, and I was discussing something with one of the St. Mary's County, who was a commissioner form still. St. Mary's County still has to go to Annapolis for everything because they're a commissioner form. 75% of the people in St. Mary's County work in the county. And that's because of that base. So when you sit here and think, and folks that may be supporting Charter, they're not recognizing the 20 years of lack of service over to the folks in Indian Head. Be quite frank. But now we have almost $30 million being invested over in Indian Head for infrastructure, for whether it's water lines, electric lines, and the federal government doesn't invest money like that into a military base if they're going to close it down. So now we have the opportunity, and we did all this under home rule. With the mayor has taken an incredible role of moving Indian Head, but it takes everybody. It takes a group effort, not just the mayor, but also the commissioners. It also takes the state delegates and the senator, and quite frankly, our congressional delegation. And we had, at least I have expressed, listen, to our delegation, Charles County the entire county is represented by Congressman Hoyer, and we are a large chunk of his representation. It's starting to slowly shrink out of Prince George's County because our population is getting bigger. So there have been conversations. Listen, we are a big part of your. We want the same attention as they're getting in St. Mary's.
It's been very good at Pax River over the years.
Yeah, and so when I say that, but this takes active involvement in the community. It takes going out and talking to people. So when you say about District 2, just because I represent District 1, if you have jobs being created in District 2 over at Indian Head, people are going to be living, and I think we're so focused on going north and south that if we focus to going east to west and blending, kind of our economy in with whether it's Dahlgren down in down in Virginia, or it's Pax and that cross, that takes people off the road. I mean, there's so many complex things that go into running a government. It's not just showing up on a Tuesday or lack thereof and collecting a check.
Want to get some comments?
Shh. Man, I could talk all night, brother.
Yo, I'm gonna let you roll. You're gonna roll. I'm gonna just sit back. Hey, that's good podcasting right there. Interject when need be, redirect. But besides that, this podcast belongs to the community, the people. So I want to make sure that we're getting all your thoughts in. It's about 30 of y'all watching.
They're lighting it up, aren't they?
Yeah, I had no doubt. Look at everything you brought here.
I don't know, man.
All right, let's go all the way back up the top. I got the haze out the way. I think Carlos said we get an update on our local legislative proposals. I think you kind of touched on that, but
I did. There were some that was that Carlos that was asking that
Carlos,
question?
yeah.
So there are some that they're kind of working out the details of how it will be drafted, but I know one of them, there was one he was specifically asking for. I'm trying to remember which one it was. Well, I can reach out to him later, but I know I see up there where it says, I hope BJ answers that question.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through. Actually, you know what? How
So-
well can you see?
I can bring my glasses, but I can see pretty good. So one of them, it looks like it was about the county executive.
Oh, a second. I'm going to scroll up.
So it's interesting, about the county administrator, because I was at a meeting last night, and there were some really good questions asked about charter, and a young lady walked out with me as I was leaving and asked me a question about the county administrator, and she said, are they elected? I said, no. They said to me, well, shouldn't that person be elected because they run day-to-day operations? And I said, well, day-to-day operations are run through the county administrator, but the president of the commissioners right now is the one full-time position.
Mm-hmm.
So really his job is to be in the office overseeing the county administrator and running the day-to-day operations. Now, where the balance comes in right now is when it comes within policy, say the county president asks the county administrator to do something that isn't necessarily along the policy or the established kind of pillars of what the commissioners established, then that county administrator comes back to the other four and said, listen, the county president wants to do this, but this needs to be an open discussion with the public. And that's usually how it goes. And that's inferring that Mr. President has done that, but that's where the check and balance is at, because that county administrator works for the majority of the commissioners. Actually works for all of them, but the majority would control the employment. So they said, well, wouldn't an executive give you more control of run the day-to-day operations? I said, the county administrator the county executive will still have a county administrator, except that county administrator will report to one person and one person only, and that's the county executive. And that's not really that's not real balance. That's not real.
It's too direct for you without not a
yeah. And think about that. And think about this.
Chat, you got anything for that? Go ahead, please.
What's that?
Have they got any comments on that part?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
That process. I was saying as far as
the
comment
yeah.
section.
So to me, right now, the president and people say, well, these are the things that are brought up, have a better voice in Annapolis. No, in Annapolis, what drives your power in Annapolis is your population. Because your population determines how many delegates and senators you have. And when it comes to divvying up money, state monies, that's where the power comes from, your votes.
Mm-hmm.
So the title does not make a difference whether you're the president or the executive. It's your ability to lead, the confidence that the public has in you, that you're looking out for the best interests of the community. And if there is any fault of lack of credibility in Annapolis, I'm not pointing fingers, but I'm saying then the president has the authority right now to represent us. Now, does he have to make sure that what he's presenting is reflective of the entire board? Yes, but that's how it should be. It shouldn't be one person going up there and dictating how Charles County is going to run.
Is that how it's working now?
No, what's happened, and that's I think where the issue is right now we have to sit in a public meeting, and each of us represents a different area of the county with, quite frankly, different needs, and it's very diverse.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to sit down in a public forum on camera and say, this is where we think we need to go as a county. And the commissioner president's job is to take that message to Annapolis, quite frankly. So I prefer that diversity of opinion, that equal representation of every area of the county, where every area of the county has an equal voice at the table.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a president who's elected countywide. And he essentially is the tiebreaker. So when you think about how we work now, it's reflective of the entire community, not just one group. So if you're mad because something can't get through because you want it, well, maybe you need to work with another commissioner from another district and say, I understand that you might have challenges with this policy, but how can we get us somewhere where we can all agree upon it? Now, there are a lot of times where we agree on policy, but there's sometimes, like this charter, that we did not. Because, quite frankly, it doesn't represent the majority of this community, this charter. And I represent the people in my district and countywide, quite frankly, that I know don't support this effort. It's not just BJ Bowen. There have been times, will be times, and you're going to ask me probably to name one, and I can't remember, where my personal opinion isn't necessarily the same as what the majority of the people want. But I got to represent the people, not myself. So.
We remember COVID.
Man, I tell you what, for an elected official, that was a tough one.
We remember COVID.
I don't want to open that can of worms.
There's a whole lot of comments in here. Let me keep it.
Moly.
Yeah, let's keep it. Let's see if we can keep it moving. I'm gonna try to highlight it, make it easier for both of us to see it from here. Let's see. Jamie, so many people are wanting to learn about our form of government now. That's what we're pretty much just touching on. Yep. Angela Silva debate is how our constitutional republic works. Yep. Derek Terry, commissioners didn't write the charter.
No, we did not write the charter. It was the charter board. And to be clear, because this was asked last night, the charter board was appointed, and there was a big debate about that. We felt like it should be non-political people, just regular citizens on this board. We didn't want it first in the first place, but if we're going to do it, let's just have regular people. No political affiliations.
Nobody in the current seat of
Nobody
government.
in a current seat. Nobody that has run for office. Just somebody that just wants to get involved in government. That was said, no. That we were told. We said, why don't we just do a blind draw? You don't know the names, because that way you can't play favorites. You can't pick people that have been involved in campaigns or friends. The three majority said no. Then proceeded to appoint folks, some of which had political connections, and one of them was an elected official. And I will tell you, I didn't feel comfortable with that, because I feel like those are
We're
like
talking about Doddering.
Well, there were people that are in elected positions. I feel like those are what you consider political insiders, and I feel like if this is really grassroots and people driven, then get regular folks in there, And it really, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but so when the charter board was established, they wrote the charter, and a big issue I had with this was, you can have a charter without a county executive. There are counties.
I saw that at the forum last week.
And I said I had real concern, and I voiced this to Mr. Waring. I said, I have a real concern the fact that you didn't even ask the public if they wanted a county executive. You just said it's in there.
I thought what he did say was the fact that you have a county executive, it's easier to work with Annapolis if you have one voice from here.
But that should be the people decide, not Greg Waring.
As far as if you want a county executive in there or not. And it's in the charter document.
Yeah.
I see where you're coming from.
And I had a real challenge with that, because if you're really being genuine, and this is a public-driven thing, then you should have put it, when the survey went out, it should have said, do you want a county executive? It should have been in there. And if the majority of the people said no, or at least have it as a discussion point, but that decision was already made. And I mean, so when that charter...
Are there any charters in Maryland without a county executive?
There are, I think, 2. And I couldn't name them off the top of my head. But I will tell you, once the charter was completed by the charter board, we had no option to change anything. It exactly like it was written is the way it had to go on the ballot. We couldn't change anything, couldn't amend it, any of that stuff. So
let's keep moving through here. Y'all keep the questions coming. We'll get to it as we get to it. Let's see. Do you want to talk to the police department here with Charter 300K, separate police department for 2090 for Charles County? And exactly what he's referring. I know what Derek's referring to as far as like our population growth until 2090 is going to be about still less than half a mil, or less than half a million, 300,000 right now. So
he's trying to base whether or not a police department is established on population.
Right.
And again, I know Prince George's County, some folks get weird when I talk about it, but it's what I know because I worked there. I believe it was around 1930.
Oh, it's a history lesson.
The police department was established. I think the population of the county was less than 50,000. And it was established for political reasons. So population has nothing to do with how you establish a police department. And let's be clear, and I put it out there, and I can say it because it's an official document. Senator Ellis strongly supports a police department. So do several members of the board, and I'm quite sure some of my colleagues in the Board of Commissioners. They don't want to come out and say it, and let's be real about it. The reason they don't want to say it is because we have an incredibly popular sheriff. Incredibly popular sheriff and Sheriff Barry. So I think you're really doing a disservice to the people when you keep pounding this drum that, oh, no. If you really didn't want a police department and you really wanted the people to make the decision, you would have put in that charter that primary law enforcement would be handled by the Charles County Sheriff's Department. By leaving that little sliver out, they don't have to go back to the people for that.
Because the county executive will control the police department in that case.
Absolutely. And I tell you, because I worked for a police department. Right now, our sheriff has autonomy. Our sheriff makes the decisions for law enforcement in the county. If the citizens don't like the direction of the sheriff's department and the direction of law enforcement, They don't elect him. Now you get a police chief in there, that's a whole different talk about unelected people with power. That's a whole lot of power to an unelected person. Mm-hmm. And it's not a scare tactic, it's reality.
Because that person will be appointed by the county executive.
Right. Yep.
Scam call, don't worry about that.
Mind if I grab that bottle of water over there, Rick?
That one? There's one right next to you.
Oh, shoot.
My fault, I'm over here. I'm talking. I'm talking,
I'm parched.
I apologize for that. I always try to bring a water bottle for the guests. Unless you're Derek Terry and bring me tea last week. I really appreciate that one.
Man.
He came through and hooked me up.
Oh, man.
He set the standard. Let's see. David, how you doing? The process to amend the charter, if there are critical flaws, is arduous. So it's very important that the initial document is clean.
And that is true because it does take, I think it's 20,000. How many people is 20? Is it 20,000 or 10,000? I'm not sure the exact amount of people. Mm-hmm. But this is where the devil's in the details with the charter, and there's things that aren't in there that make it, the ambiguity is real. I mean, it talks about agency, and when we talk about agency, there are some parts of the charter that refers to the Board of Education as an agency and the Sheriff's Department. There's some parts that maybe it wouldn't apply, but it's all an interpretation, and you could see that in our last meeting at the Elks Lodge when I was asking questions about the charter to our county attorney. And I had to and it's a matter of how the attorney interprets it. Mm-hmm. Now, think about this. Right now, the county attorney works for 5 commissioners. His opinion is going to be, hopefully, always based on the law. But reality is, what comes out of his mouth also needs to match his bosses, so to speak. So right now, he is obligated to all 5 of us. Now, you go to a charter, that county attorney will work for the county executive. One boss. Mm-hmm. Now, we can be real about it, or we can say, well, this is what the truth is. The real part is that county attorney is going to work for one person. And when it comes to interpretation of a charter, and that county executive asks for the county attorney to interpret the charter, and there's so much ambiguity in it, it gives a lot of room for interpretation, which could reflect what the county executive wants. Now, in that charter also says the county attorney will work for both the council and the executive. I have a problem with that because I feel like the council should have their own attorney hired and fired by the council.
So open to interpretation, isn't that something that could be seen with Code Home right now?
Yes, but the difference is that county attorney reports to 5 people, not 1. So there's difference of opinion on our board. Mm-hmm. So he really has to he needs to make sure what he is saying is, because it's going to be research, trust me. When you have different people with different opinions, people are going to do a lot more background and digging than opposed to one person being in charge.
Carlos, wouldn't the council still have to fund it as far as the police department? They can leverage their power by not funding PD.
So, yes, that is correct. The one thing that they have the ability to control is funding. However, the executive controls day-to-day operations, which means controls PIN numbers, which means when there's vacancies and openings in PIN numbers, you can move. He has the ability, or she has the ability, to move those PIN numbers how he or she sees fit. So they can move PIN numbers from anywhere else in the county over to a police department. That's that simple. That's simple.
No, just do it.
Say there's a Department of Emergency Services PIN number for a lieutenant over in Department of Emergency Service. They can move that right over.
Just like that.
Just like that. We could do it right now.
So, Jamie's question here. So, you mentioned that 3 commissioners can essentially control the county at this point. If you have 3 in accordance with something.
If you have 3, a majority vote, you essentially will control the operations of the county.
So, that's essentially as far as the charter, how it got introduced in the first place was.
Because the 3 commissioners were able to pass that.
Is there any filibuster process against that the people can do if they really don't like the outcome of a vote?
They can put in legislation for the removal of a commissioner, which they did twice, which was voted down by 3 other commissioners.
What's the vote tally?
3-2.
What you vote for?
I voted against, or I voted for a removal of a commissioner, a bill to legislation to allow for the removal of commissioner. So did Commissioner Stewart. Mm-hmm. My 3 colleagues, Collins, Coates, and Patterson, voted against it.
There's the names right there. See,
I can say that because that's on the record. That's
yeah. There you go.
And I'm proud of that because the people brought it back twice, and I think it was 10 different bills that were put in each time, the people really wanted it. And I even made
It's pretty partisan. People want to see that regardless.
Yeah, and I even made a point in the second time to look at my colleagues and say, how can you go out and advocate for charter and say that we need charter for a removal provision, but you can do it right now, we're on camera, and you're voting against the best interests of the people, and there was silence. And I'm just looking there at them, and I'm like, the people see the hypocrisy. It's almost like our government's being held, whether it's that bill or the term limit bill that we put in, it was voted down 3-2.
When was that voted down?
Last legislative session.
Okay.
Not this one, but last one. And you just have to sit there and shake your head like, it's almost like it's being held hostage until some folks get what they want, which is charter, and it's really unfortunate.
Donna, will we see higher taxes with the charter? You want to talk about that whole process when it comes to taxes and charter? I've seen you go. You talk about it several times online.
So,
and what's the difference now versus
fiscal administration came out with a price tag for the initial price tag for the operational side to be about 1.3 to 1.6 million, but that doesn't include a whole lot of other positions that will be necessary. It was just basically the baseline of what is right in the charter right now. And then when you look at capital costs, you're probably talking another at least 4 million. And I get that number, and I have to go through this every time because people say I just pulled it out of the sky. When we went through COVID, we moved into the blue room, so we could do like what we're doing now, a virtual option, because that wasn't a thing back before then. So the blue room where we're at now has the capabilities of doing in person and virtual. As we were coming out of COVID, we said, well, we want to go back into the big room, so when we have public hearings, that there's not people waiting outside, they can use the big auditorium. And so the 5 of us directed staff to come up with a price tag to get the big room set up for both virtual and in person. This is during budget season. They come back with a price tag of about $4.9 million. There was no way we could afford that. So we didn't include it. It's a project, but we didn't include it in funded projects in the budget. So when you look at the county charter, they will need office space to separate the executive from the council. It would be natural to have the council where we're currently at and the room that we're in now for the blue room to make that the executive suite.
That whole entire room?
Oh, yeah. It's not that big.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've seen
let's put it like this.
TV.
They would need space.
All right.
So that would make the most logistical sense and the most economical sense to put them there. So now you need space for the council to have meetings virtually and in person. So it goes back to the construction and renovations of that big room, which is $4.9 million, which is probably more now because of inflation. So you're looking at 4.9, 1.6. You're looking at 6.5 million at the very bare minimum, because there's other positions that are going to come out of this charter. And the reality is, when we balance the budget, I think yesterday in that meeting I pulled out, we had about $35 million in unfunded projects that we just couldn't afford. So when this charter, if it does pass, there's going to be no choice but to fund those projects. So where are we going to find that $6 million? Are we going to cut services? Like, are we going to cut out this new Parks and Rec thing we're doing at the Sears building with the indoor pool and the track? Are we going to cut back on the sheriff's department? Are we going to cut back on education, because those are the big funding sources? Or are we going to raise taxes?
Well, I mean, haven't taxes already been raising under Code Home?
So under Code Home rule, well, really, under any form of government, there's a taxing ability. The reason taxes have gone up is because the appraisal value of our homes has gone up, and that's set by the state. The state comes out and assesses your home, and if your home is now, instead of being worth $500,000, 4 years ago, is now worth $800,000, you're going to pay more in taxes because the assessed value is higher. So I just believe, and I mean, it's just simple math, that if they put charter in place, it's going to add government, and we're going to have to pay for that. Whereas that money could go to something like education. That $6 million, $6.5 million could go to funding more teachers, could go funding more deputies. And when you have folks coming into our public hearings and public comments, talking about wanting to see more deputies, wanting smaller classrooms, wanting to pay teachers more, that's where we need to concentrate our money, not on expanding political positions, because that is what it is right now. And I know a lot of people talk about an inspector general, and that, first, we shouldn't have to have that, because elected officials should just do the right thing in the first place. Second, we have a an auditor in the county that audits our funds, and that's audits and make sure we're doing the right thing. And the third thing is we can create an inspector general right now under code home rule. We don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
So why not? So you saying there's a lot we could do? Why aren't we doing it then? If we could do it,
I think you need to ask the other 3 commissioners that aren't passing that, and that's where it goes to. I'm not a giant conspiracy theory person, but if you think about it, it's like the outrage. If you go back to the meetings when we first started, and even there was an op-ed that Commissioner Collins did back in 2021, I think, when we were trying to get that district-only voting through.
Mm-hmm.
They were fighting it back then. So it's okay to have district voting in a charter, but it wouldn't be okay to do it in code home rule because that was a thing. They were telling folks, "Oh, we need charter to do district-only voting," and we proved them wrong in 21, and we put in district voting, which will be in effect in 26. So I feel like it's almost like creating a problem to justify the solution of charter. Like you're creating this problem of not being able to remove a commissioner because we can do it now to justify, well, we need charter to do that. Or we're not doing term limits because, we need charter to do that. No, you didn't pass that here. We could have done it here. And I just find it very hypocritical to go out and preach that. And I think that challenges the intelligence of the people in this community. They see it. The people see it. If they don't, they're hearing it tonight.
Let's see what the people have to say. Keep your questions going on. I'm gonna scroll up a little bit. Hold on.
That's a lot of questions.
Some of it's a little bit back and forth too. Candace, I saw you had a question earlier, and you said, "I hope BJ sees this." I
saw it too. They put a question at the end. That'll probably help you see it.
With a
question mark at the end.
Yeah. I got a couple. Where's that Candace one at? Candace Griffin. Hold on, because I want to come to yours for sure. I think you may have already answered this, but I want to make sure we get this one directly. That wasn't it. So county. Oh, there it is, right there. So county administrator and county executive hold almost the same duties under a charter system.
What's interesting about that is the county executive will handle day-to-day operations, in theory, as an elected official, but really that'll be delegated down to the county administrator under charter, the same way we do it now. The elected positions are really that. They determine policy, not day-to-day operations. So even under charter, an unelected person will be running the day-to-day operations of county government, but directed by one person instead of 5. Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. Yeah, because I know you explained it earlier, so I just want to make sure we.
Because there were actually people at one of our town halls that were saying, "Well, the county executive can just move into the county administrator's office because then they can just be there, and then the deputy county administrator will just work directly for the county executive." No. There's going to be a county administrator and a deputy county administrator, if not more, under a county executive.
Let's see. DT said everything that's passed is 3241. Obviously, as you know, what makes it temporary, whereas charter makes it permanent unless the people change it. As far as this,
what do you mean, policy?
Yeah, as far as like what I kind of said here, like you can do these things now, but
people can decide to change it now if we go into this next. Like I can tell you this. Here's a great example. Under home rule right now, you have 3 commissioners that won't vote for the removal of a commissioner. Well, we can change that. We have an election.
Yeah, if you
elect somebody that's willing to vote for that, so the people can change it right there, and that's how it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that in this charter, it leaves a lot of ambiguity and a lot of things that are left blank. It gives a lot of room for interpretation. So one of the questions I saw, can you go back down? It was.
I'm already down. When we go back up.
Yeah, go up a little bit more. It was Deborah. Mm-hmm. It was asking a question about transparency in the county executive.
That one's right.
So right now, a lot of the functions of the executive, or all the function of the executive branch, are done amongst the commissioners. And that's transparently done in open meetings, where you will see it within the public. We'll see how we're deciding how things are going to go, except for certain personnel things, which no matter what form of government, certain personnel things won't be public. But under an executive, the executive isn't required to have those public meetings and discuss that. That's not part of the charter. So a lot of things that we're discussing now, whether it's water allocations or stuff like that, falls under the executive form of what we do. So because we're in this commissioner or code home rules form, those happen public. Those discussions happen publicly. Under an executive form, those are day-to-day operations that aren't necessarily public information. That's not a legislative issue, so you're not going to see just a commission. You wouldn't see an executive just standing in front of a mic just talking to you. What you'll see is the legislative part, which is the 5 council people having discussion.
I thought in the charter that you had to have public forums on legislative items. That you had to bring these out to the public. You couldn't just
on the legislative side.
Okay, but it's
So
still
not on the executive side.
But these are okay. So you essentially executive, and you're saying they can kind of just.
I didn't say they can do what they want because there are some with the as far as the funding source. That's the only balance, really, in my opinion. And they can say that what is it? The person that Inspector General is a balance. Do you know to remove a council person has to be approved by the county executive? So if I'm on the council and I do something I shouldn't do, and there's a recommendation for removal, the county executive say, no, I don't approve that. And what do you think happens with that council member? Who do you think that council member owes?
I thought that went to a vote. As far as you
people?
saw on the charter board.
I'm talking about on charter, under charter. A removal of a council person has to be approved by the executive.
I have that here. I want to come back to that one because I had a few questions about that one. But Angela has a question right there about the constant. It says something about the constant yield. And then we'll get back to that removal part because I want to read what it says word for word here. If the constant yield rate was established, our property taxes wouldn't rise with higher assessments.
That is true.
You want to talk on constant yield real quick?
So constant yield would mean that right now you pay a percentage of your taxes are based on your home value multiplied by a percentage. So if your home value goes up, the amount you're going to pay in taxes is going to go up because the percentage doesn't change, but the value of your home does. So that raises the amount. Constant yield would mean no matter what, your home, or whether your house goes up or not, you pay the same amount. You would say if you're paying, I just use a clean example. If you're paying $5,500 right now in property taxes, because that's what your home value is and the percentage that everybody pays in taxes, that's based on, say, a $500,000, we'll just say a $500,000 appraisal by the state. Say 3 years from now, the state comes out and does an assessment, and it says it's $800,000. Under just staying with that same percentage, of course, the amount you're going to pay is going to go up because your house is worth more money.
Right.
But under constant yield, you would just pay that same amount. Now, the problem with that is with inflation and the cost of services going up, you run the risk of not having enough money to fund police, fire, education, parks and rec, roads. So it's that's where I say every dime counts. And when you start putting money out for things like charter that has nothing to do with the services to the community, whether it's roads or schools or the sheriff, that presents challenges to me. Because to me, you need to make sure every dime is going to services, not to politicians.
So let's say charter government's here. Does our budget go up? Do we get more money?
Oh, we can get more money, and that's coming from you all, the taxpayers.
So it is not like Napa's going to say, Westmore's going to say, hey, BJ Bowling, here's about another $100 million for your charter board.
Well, here's an example I will give you. About 2 weeks ago, it was less than that, about a week and a half ago, the governor sent down notification that we got $30 million in state funding cut from the SMRT project, which is the light rail. So if that's happening now, imagine what other things could be cut. And then you're adding on top of that the cost of charter. Again, it goes back to, are you going to raise taxes or are you going to cut services?
I've seen you bring it up before, too, as far as like...
That's just the reality.
What would you like me to do here?
What do you want me to do?
There's no other way that, as far as us making money here, we'll open up a casino or something?
Oh, casino. I don't... That's a state-regulated item. And technically, we do have a casino in Charles County. It's the Riverboat, which is on the other side of the bridge in Virginia, but it comes out onto the river, so it's technically Maryland. So that tax revenue is generated in Charles County and goes into the general fund for the state.
Oh, really? I didn't. Oh, that they just.
A lot of people don't know that. So technically, we do have a casino in Charles County, in Colonial Beach. Yep. It's actually in my district, believe it or not.
Hey, look at that. They gave you a kickback for it?
No. Oh, man. Rick, you asked tough questions.
Hey, question, Candace. Don't the county executive have to have a state of the county type address?
We don't.
I'm not sure.
I don't know if they have to, but we could do that now. I mean, we do actually have a state of the county. It's kind of like our year in review. It's
State of the
named
County. I
something.
see, yeah.
It's named something different, but it's the same, essentially the same thing.
I think it's like it's like a PowerPoint that you put out like a little video,
Right.
but like getting in front of the people.
The president
tie,
could do
all
that. The president could do that right now. We could let him do that.
I feel there's a lot that we can do right now, but because they're not required to, they don't have to. Like yourself, like you're always busy doing
now
something.
I'm going to say this
you
and be
treat it
bold.
like a full-time
so,
job.
So we're well.
Go say what you're about to say. I want to
Because at the end of the day, if you want somebody to be out there and be vocal and do these things, all they got to do is go into a meeting, put an agenda item in, and say, colleagues, I'd like to be able to do a state of the county. I'd like to be able to have you guys look and have input into that, and I'd like to be able to do it. Okay. You're the president. You're the only technically full-time position. But it goes back to the conspiracy theory. You got to be willing to do it. Now, if he wants to delegate that authority to the District 1 commissioner, I'd be more than happy to do it for him. I'm being honest. I mean, I'm an elected official just like him.
I mean, you're kind of doing one right now.
Well, I'm not going to go say that.
No. Angela, we don't need any casinos. Angela, I know how you feel about certain nightlife.
Hold on. I want
around
to stop
here.
on this one
That's
because
funny.
this one has come up before. The idea of creative funding sources. What is a creative funding source?
The idea of a creative funding sources is not a way to fund $500 million of operating budget.
I'm trying to figure out what a creative funding source is, because no matter what, the only way the government brings in money is through taxes. And if you say, well, grants, well, where do you think that federal and state grant money comes from? Federal and state taxes. Mm-hmm. And those aren't, when you get grants, they're not revolving things. Like, we can't use grant money to pay for ongoing costs because they're one-time expenses. So I will give you an example. I'll use myself as an example. When I was hired in 2000 as a police officer in Prince George's County, I was hired under the Bill Clinton COPS grant. So that grant paid for my position for like 3 years. Well, eventually, after those 3 years, the county had to pick up the bill and pay for my salary. So those things aren't permanent fixes. I mean, they're nice because you can get things done, but it's not a long-term solution. The really only long-term solution is tax revenue, which is two ways: property taxes and income taxes.
So Deborah says grants are still taxpayer money.
Yes, it is. Unless it's from a private sector, unless it's from like a Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos, then yes, it's tax money.
We're not getting one of those.
You'd be surprised.
So that brings another question. Carlos asks, what bills do you plan on bringing forward to for the county?
That's a great question. That will be reflective in what the people want. If people want a bill in, just contact my office and we can see if we can work one out.
That is true, but is there anything that you?
I think
you know what? I think this is good.
I think the removal of commissioners should be put in. I really think that's a good one to put in.
Yeah, they're kind of a lockchain with that one.
But it doesn't mean you stop. You keep pushing because, believe it or not, after November, there's still going to be an election in 26.
Right.
So I think minds might change in 2 years because as we get, and you'll see it, as we get closer to the 26 election, people will start, I think, listen more to the people because they're going to have to go knock on these doors for votes. And people are going to want answers for why they didn't vote for things.
Okay, so let's park there for a second. I have something I want to bring up.
Yeah.
I'll reach out to you. What happens next?
Okay, so let's just say it's the removal of commissioner. Reach out to me, and we'll pretend like there has never been one put in. And say, hey, Commissioner Boyne, I'd like to put in a piece of legislation. You could actually do it. You could actually do it yourself under our current home rule. You could put the bill in as a citizen. Or if you want to reach out for a sponsorship, like me to sponsor the bill, you reach out to my office, say, hey, Commissioner Boyne, I'd like to have this bill put in. I'll probably go and go to the county attorney through our legislative process and say, this is something I want to put in. They'll put a real vague removal of a commissioner. And if the commissioners agree that that's something we want to move forward, the county attorney's office will draft the actual legislation and then we'll vote on it. It's really that simple. It really is. Now, some things, if I don't agree with it, I'm like, I can't put that in. Mm-hmm. But I think you as a community member should put it in and we can have some good public debate about it, either why we support it or why we don't. And that's the beauty of this process, is when you want the people have direct access to establishing laws right now. You can put in legislation. I want nobody to be able to walk a dog on Tuesday. You could literally put that in. And when we read it down through the legislative process, we all five of us in public in the public view, on camera, well, I support dogs not being able to walk on Tuesdays because of this, or I don't support it. Either way. And that's, to me, that's where, I think my baseline for my adamant support of home rule comes from, because this is the best form of government. It was interesting. As we're asking people to dig into this charter, some folks have done some real digging, and they found some bills in Annapolis where the state legislators have put in bills where there's direct control from the state level of charter governments. And one of the bills, and it was brought to my attention, was by one of our own delegates, Delegate Patterson. She sponsored the bill. And it was something about fees, I believe it was. And it made me really sit back and wonder, is this a way for the state to be able to control local laws a little bit better? Because under home rule, it gives us, it's why it's called home rule. It gives us a lot more power locally to do things. And that wasn't an original concern of mine, but as citizens have dug and found these bills, it's got me really concerned, because I believe there needs to be a lot of autonomy from Annapolis, and we have it right now. Outside of going up there and asking for state funding, we can do just about anything down here now. It's not like St. Mary's and Calvert that are still in that commissioner form of government where they got to go to Annapolis for everything. Under home rule, we can do it all here. We really can. There's only a few things we got to go to Annapolis for.
So charter gets passed. I want to present a bill. How does that work?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if it's gonna, because I would assume. I don't want to assume, but if it's like what we do now, I would think it would go through. Because see, the council has the ability to put legislation in, but so does the executive. So I don't think there's a clause in there where the executive has to have a public forum, like the police department thing is a great example, to request the ability to have a police department. I don't think that has to go before the public. I think that the executive can just ask the state legislature, can you put this bill in for me? Because I believe that's how it's done in other charter counties, where right now we have a process. Now, I'm not sure about the council. There might be a sponsorship clause in there. I don't know. Like, there might be a clause in the charter where a councilman has to sponsor the bill. I don't know. I don't want to give you a false answer, so I'm not sure. That's a good question I can look up.
All good. We got to. It's here, and I'm pretty sure the comment section is already on it too. And we can keep moving from there. Removed. I'm gonna go for there. Derek Terry had another question here. I want to finish up a few things about taxes. Deborah, we'll get to that shortly too. Hold on, I want to scroll up. Anytime in the spring. Give me a second, everybody. Is there any form of government that can guarantee no tax increase or budget cuts?
Of course not. That's common sense. Really? But I can tell you, I can tell you this: if a charter passes, I can guarantee you, it's going to raise the cost of government, because we've already talked about it. So that guarantee is there.
Adding more people.
Because you're adding more people and adding more infrastructure.
Yeah. Let's see, people, term limits. Yep, we talked about that one.
That last question you asked, because see, that my answer is going to be twisted tomorrow. You watch. See, even Commissioner Boying admitted no form of government, because that's common sense.
Gotcha. All right, let's keep moving from here. Do we want to, before we break, because we say we talk charter, but there's a few other things that we want to talk about. Overall, you already voted no to charter.
Correct.
You voted for you. You said you well, you didn't vote, but you said no to charter. You said there's a lot of things. You're going to vote no for charter. There's a sign that's been out there that says no to charter, keep our Democrats. There's been some interest exactly what does that mean by the our Democrat part.
So if you look at the sign, which not all signs have an authority line. Mine has my campaign authority line. My signs say keep our home rule, which is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Keep our Democrats, is which I want to do. And vote no charter, which I want to do. It's me as a elected official, as a campaign. That's my position, and it's stating it pretty clearly. I don't think there's really any question about. I was the chairman of the Democratic Party. I want to keep our Democrats in office. I want to keep our home rule, and I want to vote no charter. Now, people can twist it the way they want, but don't be twisted. Don't get it twisted. People out there trying to make it, oh, this is the Republican charter. This is the Republicans doing it. No, I'll be honest with you. It's a lot of Democrats too. So it's my right, like it is any other elected official's right, to go out there and put, as long as this is respectful and abides by campaign finance, to what they want on a sign. And I'm a Democrat. I get constantly challenged. You know, you're not a real Democrat. I was the chairman of the Democratic Party here in the county. What more do I have to do to prove that I'm a Democrat? And quite frankly, it's getting a little insulting because it's starting to insinuate along other lines as to why I'm not a quote-unquote real Democrat. And people, those are things that people don't talk about in public, but it's starting to make me very uncomfortable. Because if we're going to talk real, Rick,
go on.
I'm one of the few, I think myself and maybe Lorraine Hennessy, of the people of non-color that are elected Democrats in Charles County. And so it's starting to feel like that people are separating me because of the color of my skin. And that's an unfortunate situation because I've been a loyal Democrat. I've supported the party. I've been the chairman of the party, supported our candidates, and it's really insulting to the public because it's like that reading between the lines. And folks talk all the time about, you know, ruffle my feathers about certain things, but to really, I've been kind of quiet about that. But that's how it's really starting to feel. And I'm just being honest. Like, other people have a right to their opinion. Well, I have a right to mine too. And I don't know what else I can do to prove to folks I'm a Democrat. So it comes back to this sign. What does "our Democrats" mean? Well, what do you mean? What does it mean? Democrats. We're all Democrats. I mean, not all of us, but people in the party. And it's an uncomfortable thing, but people feel emboldened to say it like that because they're not checked. And both sides. There's both way. It goes both ways. And I think sometimes people continue to try to divide the county based on those lines. And we'd be not doing a service to the folks talking about real news that's not an angle in this charter. That people are trying to make it like, oh, look at who's not supporting charter. And they're implying it's a racial issue. It's not a racial issue. There's people of all races and ethnicities and demographics that are against this charter. And I think it challenges the intelligence of the people in this county. Because I think, you know, in 2024, we're not perfect. We got a long way to go, but we've come a long way. And I think we need to start looking at things as people, not as color. Not ignoring the challenges we face of racism, but acknowledging that people of different races can have the same opinion on this charter.
One thing about you, too, is that you're very active online and more, like I said, you're more active than the four of your members on the board almost combined. So
it's because I choose to be, and I'm open to questions, and I really have nothing to hide. You're
very easy to reach. Myself, like before when we first did the podcast, I'd reach out to your people,
Absolutely.
Emails, but now I could just text you and we just go from there.
Yeah.
But that comes with its own challenges. I'm not saying you've been obviously we know you haven't been always perfect in the past when it came to a few things that you wish, like, damn, I wish I kind of had that one back, or get in the comments section and things of that sort. But
I think as long as you're willing to accept the responsibility that you made a mistake and improve upon it, then nobody's perfect.
Right,
nobody, and that's why you talk about people that are online, quite frankly, losing their minds. And it's just like, I realize, and I'm cognizant of people that don't have the same opinion on me of this charter, that they have families, they have children. And so I try to keep it on policy. Some folks, they're not practicing what they preach. They come out here and say that, just keep it on policy, no personal attacks, and the next 2 days later they're attacking. And that's why I don't like using names, because I don't want to personally attack people. I'm going to attack the policy, but not the person. And I think that's how we keep civility in politics, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, or you're black or you're white or you're gay or you're straight.
The temperature around, we'll move on here shortly, but the temperature around charter has been, like, I've seen some good conversations here. Like, I've had Greg, Carlos, Angela on. Angela, I see your question too. I'll come back to you. But I wish it was more like that, like what we're even doing tonight versus, a lot of what we've seen online, a lot of back and forth. I know a lot has been, you've taken a lot of heat for that, for you could take the temperature down some, with people that are anti-charter, no charter.
But, I'll be honest with you. I'm one of 5. Why is this all falling on Commissioner Bowling? I'm not even the president. I'm keeping it real. There are 5 commissioners sitting up there every week. And I'm not calling out any of my colleagues. I've heard Commissioner Stewart say numerous times, keep it civil. She's put out a statement about charter. But you elected 5 people. Not 1. Not 2. You elected 5. And trust me, I know that some of the commissioners get a little heat for some things, but they really should be speaking up. I mean, the same opportunity that you've given me has been, I would think, been given to every commissioner. So, to me, you can't pick and choose. You can't pick comfortable positions to go in because it's comfortable. As an elected official, you got to pick things that might be uncomfortable because that's your job.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to be there to serve the people, it's not all about getting your picture taken or having videos or showing up for ribbon cuttings. It's about getting in that office and doing the work of the people and looking through the budget and doing your job. And if you're going out here telling people that you don't have any control and it's run by somebody that's not elected, that's your fault because you're not doing your job. I can't speak it any more clear. That's your fault. There's 5 of us. You could go in there at any time. You could go into the office at 3 o'clock in the morning and pull out that budget book and look through it and go through with a highlighter and say, I don't like this, I like this, and come into those meetings ready to work. Or you can barely show up on a Tuesday, if you show up on a Tuesday, and just stand there. And it's reflective in what the people think. And if you go out there and you talk to the people, don't go out there and tell them it's staff's fault. It's not staff's fault. There's a problem. It's your fault. You need to open it, bring it up in the meeting. Let's talk about it. But it's easy to blame staff. And especially, I take issue with planning and growth management because a lot of the challenges that the community are facing, we can solve it. Bring it to a commissioner, and I'll tell you if there's something I don't agree with. I'll say, listen, I don't agree with this, so I can't move forward with it. But at least I'll have that conversation with you. And if you say, well, and if I say I support something, challenge me. Say, bring it up. Instead of saying, well, it's not the county administrator's fault. We direct the county administrator. If the 3 of us told the county administrator, a majority said, county administrator, this is what we want done, he or she will do it or get fired. So don't act like that, I don't have the power because I don't have that title. No, do your job. And I don't think I can speak any more blunt than that. Well, I'm going to see this. You should have stated your opinion once and kept quiet and let the charter board play out without them being attacked. Don't throw a rock and hide your hand. Let the informed voters vote by reading themselves. I have a right as an American to speak my opinion. I have an even bigger responsibility representing the people that put me in office to speak my opinion, especially when I believe that it's not good for the community.
Mm-hmm.
That's my job. Sit back in silence. That charter board, whom I respect because they were doing their job as appointed and didn't get paid for it. But I'm an elected commissioner. I'm not going to keep quiet. The people didn't pay me to keep quiet. The people paid me to speak my mind. It's just you don't like what I'm saying, so you want me to be quiet. And I don't know if that's what the people are implying. I'm sorry. I see more.
Oh no! Address where you want to. And
no,
then
I'm trying to look
we'll
at these questions because you should have. I'm looking for questions. He should have. Hold on. Go back up to that one because I'm going to address this one.
Which one? Which one?
Derek said gaslighting. And I think we talked about this, Ricky, where it said that there is an expectation from Mr. Terry that I address every single comment that comes on my social media page as far as any implied or microaggressions, as he call it. Listen, I feel like every 3 or 4 months I have to put a message out there that says I'm not a racist. I don't support racism. And that's getting insulting because I've said it 3 and 4 times. I keep repeating it. But it's like you're using – and listen, I get it. I understand that people say things that are not sensitive to folks that are racist.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't stop every person. I can't censor them. I can't erase posts on my Facebook page because I'm an elected official. So I don't agree with it. I'm stating it publicly for the 100th time. I don't support racist comments. I don't support racist behavior. I believe that everybody should have an equal right to their government. Everybody should have equal access. I believe in these things. It's like
it's common sense.
It's like me holding Derek accountable for some of the things other people have said, and it's not fair. It's not fair because he didn't say it. So it's very challenging because I do have kids. Mm-hmm. So it's not fair to hold me accountable for other people's what they say and to say I didn't address it is just simply not true. And when you're acting in a certain behavior, whether it's online or at my town halls, I have to distance myself from that because I am an elected official and I'm expected to respond in a respectful manner, but I can only handle so much of it. I'm being honest, man, because it's like every day. There's a lot of patience I have to have, and I try to remain patient and calm, but sometimes people really they try to push your buttons.
How did charter start in the first place? Who put it on the ballot? Who brought it forward?
It was brought up by, I don't know if it was Commissioner Collins or Commissioner Patterson. I don't know which one, or Coates. It was one of the three. I'm not sure.
Before we move on, because I do want to move on to, I want to talk about this court case, but is there anything else up there you want to address, or do you feel like we suffice that for the repeat?
Well, and I am in no way able to tell any Facebook group what they can or can't do. But the reality is there are some groups out there that are, I would say, picking and choosing what they allow on their pages. But that's their right. That's their page. And do I agree with it? No, but I don't have any control over that. I think it almost undermines the legitimacy of your page, because people should be able to see both sides of it. They should be able to see all sides of it, quite frankly. There's a huge frog sitting outside your office right now.
Hey, give him a mic.
Wildlife coming out. No, other than that, I mean, I think the more information that gets out to the people is a good thing. It's just people have to take the time to, Ken Ram, if you have done your job right, you evolve in the position, you have more than passed the audition, you're passionate about this and considering the stakes, you should be nothing less. And I want to tell you something about, so when I ran for office, Ken Robinson, who was the former District 1 commissioner, we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. But talking about evolving in office, that's some truth there. Because I think you get into these positions with these ideas of grandeur and, rainbows and sunshine that you can go in and change the world, and even positions you have on policy and people, and you start seeing the things that are going on behind the scenes, and it really changes your perspective. And I've said, it was like being a police officer. Becoming a police officer doesn't change you. It makes you become more of who you really are. If you're a good person, and you come into this and work as a policeman, you're going to see the humanity in it and the people you're trying to help. And the 3:00 in the morning, kid out on the street, or somebody not having enough food to put food on the table, and that makes you. To me, that's what it did to me. It made me more of what I really am. I think, and I try to do the right thing. So in elected office, if you truly want to do it for the people, and you're not doing it for the position, the power, the money, then it's real easy. It's like the scale I said. If what you want is a special interest or is an individual crosses what the people want, then that's easy. The hard part, really, and it goes back to you talking about campaign donations. The hard part is looking somebody in the eye that's giving you a decent amount of money for your campaign and saying, "Listen, I appreciate you supporting my campaign, but I can't do that because that's not what the people want. Here's what the people want, and if you can get what you're trying to propose more in line with the people want, then we can talk about it and we can work it through." But talking on with Ken, and I've grown to, there's people that I've grown to respect more as sitting in this office because of the decisions they made when they were there, seeing the bigger picture. And there's people that I'm really disappointed in because I think that they had the ability and the position to do better. And they've kind of put us in a position we are now. And I laugh. There's sometimes I walk down the hall and think to myself, some of the decisions made 30, 40 years ago, and not picking out anyone in particular, it just, I find challenges with it. Like, how did that make this county better? And to me, I look at it like this: the decisions we as a board of commissioners are making today are really going to impact all of our children 20 years from now. Mm-hmm. And if you make the wrong one, do you want to be that person they look back and say, "Damn, they did the wrong thing"? You want to be that person in history? No, I want to be able to people look back and say, "Listen, we might not have agreed with everything he said, but damn, he was truthful and he really cared about the county, so he really was trying to do his best." And no matter what form of government you're in, that's what you need. And you need leaders that think like that. To me, That's just my opinion. So
I'm with it. Actually, since we're talking about it, Voices of Brian's Road. It's got a question. I saw you had the comment too. I'll get to that later. What is being done to address the negative workplace climate in Charles County government? We're public witnessing it, but I'm pretty sure it's impacting them professionally too. And we could segue that into the court case of what you can bring up and what you got for us.
I'll talk a little bit on that first. Quite frankly, Commissioner Stewart and I have stood up, standing up, and are standing the front line for our employees. No matter which way you cut, no employee in any government, no private sector should have to deal with what some of our employees have had to deal with an elected official. They should not have to deal with that. And on top of that, and I'm not ashamed to say this, my two colleagues that are allowing this to continue to happen should be ashamed of themselves. They should be, because at the end of the day, the facts are the facts. And it hasn't just been one time. It's been numerous times. It hasn't just been one employee. It's been numerous employees of all different backgrounds. People should be able to come to work free of harassment, bullying, intimidation. And the reality is these positions we have, they do come with a significant amount of power. And with power comes responsibility. Responsibility to realize that it's not about you. It's about the general welfare of the entire public, to include our employees. Stand up for them and do the right thing. Because if you were, and I was in those shoes as a county employee in another county, and I had so much respect for whether it was elected officials or managers that just were willing to put themselves in front of the chaos and the problem. And I will continue to do that. I'm not bashful about standing up and saying that that's the right thing to do and continue to do it. I think our actions need to reflect it. People shouldn't be scared, feel scared to come forward with information about things that are wrong. And maybe it's the cop in me that says what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. And what needs to happen is the commissioner in question, Commissioner Coates, needs to admit she was wrong, and we need to move on. Quite and simple. And the other two commissioners need to stand up and say what she did was wrong, and we need to move on. But as long as is continued to have, and quite frankly, we talk about the shadow campaign or the underground, talking or the whisper campaigns of, I think some of my colleagues think she did nothing wrong and are telling people out there, oh, it's the big bad county administrator. No. Knowing what I know, Commissioner Coates was wrong. And a judge said it, several lawyers have said it, and, quite frankly, I want it to be over. And the answer isn't, well, they should have filed an EEOC complaint. No, it shouldn't have happened in the first place. And anybody that knows anything about EEOC knows that I can't comment on that. So maybe there has been one filed, but I can't comment on it. And knowing what EEOC entails, so we should have let him be fired, him file the EEOC complaint, and the behavior continued now with a new employee? No. The buck stops here. It stops now. And if you want to know why there's a county administrator on administrative leave, it's because of them, not because of us. All you got to do is say it was wrong and let's move on. What is it, October 7th we go back?
2024.
For the
appeal. You saw originally. That was 2022, right?
No, the appeal is like in a week or two before the Maryland Appellate Court.
Right.
And it's like...
You said Monday, right?
I think it's Monday.
Okay.
It's disturbing. I mean, some of the things that have happened, I talk about Prince George County in a bad way. I mean, not in a bad way, but some of the things that have gone wrong. But in a good way, this would not have... Where I worked... Some of the things happened would never be tolerated. And I just, I feel for our county employees, but I think they know that at least two of their commissioners have their back, both in action and words, not just words. So
what happens on Monday? What is it?
I believe the Court of Appeals will hear the case, and no new evidence can be brought in. They just need to find if there was any fault in the process. I believe that's how the appellate court works.
So if there's fault in the process, then what? Like how soon can we find a resolution with this?
I think they take time to come back with a decision, or they could come back right away. I don't know the answer to that question. It's more of a legal question that the county attorney might be able to answer. And something, and I hate to take this back around to charter, but if you look at the timetable.
Oh, no, take your time. You're good.
The timetable of this, there was some challenges with Commissioner Collins in about August. It was actually earlier than that with the credit card issue. And then Mr. Belton came before us, brought the challenges before us in December, right before the new board got put in. And then that whole emergency meeting that was changed at the last minute, the details of it where they tried to fire Mr. Belton and all of that. People need to understand that the timing isn't a coincidence. That Mr. Belton brought to light some unethical stuff that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And you add that on top of what Commissioner Coates was dealing with. In order to have that go away without the public knowing, the solution for some was to fire Mr. Belton. Not because of job performance, but because of that. So now, because they didn't get rid of Mr. Belton, that stuff with the credit card came out. And the stuff with Coates came out. And I feel like that the bigger picture needs to be seen for folks. When it talk about corruption, well, what's corrupt about charter? That right there. Under a board of 5 commissioners, if the county administrator has a problem with the chief elected official, there's 5 of us. They don't have to go to report it to the offender. They can go to the other ones, which is what happened. It essentially went to all of us. So under an executive, that one, if he had a complaint against the executive, who would that go to? He doesn't have communication with the council. That goes to the executive. So think about that. I mean, people are intelligent. I mean, you start, and it's not like I'm making stuff up. This is stuff that really happened. And
On the charter, that wouldn't go to IG?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Thought that'd be an IG thing.
I don't know. It's a good question.
Well, continue.
So, yeah, other than that's where some of my, one of the many challenges I have. And again, back to the IG. Although we shouldn't have it, a lot of things changed after that as far as with the auditor we have. It can be call him an auditor, call an inspector general. We have the auditor in place now. Now there's a better process in place because, originally you wouldn't think that somebody elected would do that. So although there were checks and balances in place, there was a lot of, it was the chief of staff's fault because they did it. No. Now we literally have to sign the form where before, it wasn't. It was kind of like I need this paid for, and it wasn't necessarily that last step. So now, essentially, with this signature in place, it makes it easier for the county auditor to say, no, you approved it as an individual commissioner.
I would get to some of these comments too.
They're lighting up now.
Carlos, I saw you ask this earlier. I did pass it just for a flow of conversation space, but you had to post it 3 or 4 times.
What's that
my
one?
guy, I saw it. He wanted to go back to and I want to work this one. I know you kind of answered this one, but we want to get a more direct answer. So, in addition to removal of bills, do you plan on putting anything else in?
I mean, I could. I mean,
removal of a commissioner. Do you plan on putting
if
anything
there are
else in?
bills that people want to put in, I mean, I encourage them to put it in, and we look through them. I mean, I don't have any off the top of my head right now. That ladybug just came flying in. Not off the top of my head, but I mean, I'm open to discussion about it.
Okay. Angela, the coach thing has been happening since 2020. No one's to be subjected to a hostile work environment. Zebby, how you doing? Of course not. Belton was doing his job, bringing the misuse of Charles County to light. Let me some Carlos. Likewise. Inspector General in the selection process, the charter document is very flawed. Deborah, Ricky, don't forget to ask me a question about Coates' appeal fees.
Commissioner Coates' appeal fees.
Throw it in again. I read it word for word verbatim. But go on.
I mean, I can tell you that we voted not to pay for her appeal fees, but the fees that were incurred before that, we had no choice. But I can tell you, I don't want to speculate. I have a real strong feeling that it's going to be contested. The county's not willingness to pay for her legal fees. I'll just say that.
What's the number at right now?
Oh man, it's over $2 million, I think.
Oof. And
all this, I'm going to tell you,
that's all taxpayer money.
All this taxpayer money, and honestly, all of it could have been resolved with. If you go back and watch that original meeting, I was begging Commissioner Patterson, just look through the documents. You're brand new. You don't know what we've been dealing with for the last 2.5 years.
We watched.
And I'm sitting there begging him,
yeah.
just please look through it, because you will. I know. I believed in my heart that you stand for the right things, and this was wrong. And I got to tell you, I was very disappointed in that. I mean, I'm still disappointed, but it just be. We can't just let it go, because if you let it go today, it'll spread throughout government that that's acceptable. Because at the highest levels of government, if we allow that to happen, what will the mid-level employees think they can do and get away with? It's like almost like a parent. You're setting the example for your kids. Well, as an elected official, you're setting the example for your employees. Like, we expect more from our employees. You know, we have this whole, we have the whole DEI that we've established in the county to push forward. Well, don't be a hypocrite. If we push this policy forward, which I believe in, then we need to apply it to ourselves. And when you have things on email, you have things documented. I mean, I hate to say this, but Mr. Belton has a... No, I can't say that. I can't say that. My county attorney almost got me. Not today, Ricky. Not today.
Hey.
Not today, Ricky Bobby.
Angela, how is she paying then? You said text.
I see one on one. Why not file the EEOC complaint? He would have been protected from day one and no legal fees. First, I can't talk about EEOC, whether or not he's filed one or not. Second, it's not just that. It's more than that. Because we all know that they could have fired him and they would have continued to perpetuate what Coates has done, and no matter who was the executive or the county administrator. To victim blame in any other circumstance would not be tolerated. But some folks feel it's acceptable to victim blame in the Mr. Belton situation, which is horrendous and unacceptable. It's not Mr. Belton's fault.
I know there was a report that came out. I think Lagasse, if I'm saying that right, that it has some details in it. When can we expect anything official? Is this? I guess would be that when this whole thing is over.
I think official and on Monday whenever the court comes back with their decision, I think that's when something official will come back to you. So okay. I don't have a definite answer right now. This will
come out to public. Isn't it gonna be like a FOIA request or anything like that?
You could always put one in. I think that was some of the challenges that people put forward, that they felt like more information should have been available to them publicly, which I didn't have a problem with. Not once filed.
Take a look at the comments.
Okay, not once filed as it would have been a form of retaliation to fire him by Derek. Well, that was the basis for another employee's complaint, because he stood up and said something, and then they tried to fire that employee. So there's a pattern of that too.
The report has all the public documents related to this case. I've seen some of it, but I don't know how, because I know how official that is, and I don't know if that can be.
There's a lot out there. There's a lot to be processed. But I can tell you, in 22 years of government service, I've never seen such a flagrant violation of somebody's civil rights.
Really?
Well, when it comes to this type of government, political, elected official abuse. I've seen people do things that are illegal. I was in the era of Mr. Johnson when he was walked out in handcuffs, so I know that elected officials do things that aren't right.
I was in PG County around that time.
But as far as the inner employee stuff, I can't even begin to wrap my head around it. I mean, there's been times where I haven't agreed with employees, but I know the process, and I don't take it personally, and I don't take it to that level. I don't think you quite understand EEOC from Derek, so I digress. You don't have to digress. I understand it completely because I was a police commander, and I dealt with it every day when people had EEOC complaints. So that's challenging my intelligence, Derek. No need to digress. It just is what it is.
If there's any questions we missed at this point, we're about an hour and a half in. We still got about another topic or two I want to go over with you before we go from there. But if anyone has any questions that I missed, all right, feel free to spam the chat so we can look at it. I don't want to miss anything here or feel like that we just passed or anything, or that we just didn't want to talk on it.
We could talk about my Commanders and our new quarterback of the future.
Oh, I didn't tell you. I was there.
Oh.
That's why we can do this podcast on Tuesday. I'm there.
I'm trying not to have, as Commanders fans, we get kind of boosted up and then drop like a cinder block. But I'm telling you what, he looked good.
It looked good in person, man. Just trying to keep it real even keel. Derek said he was on EEOC.
Okay. Let's see. The second report should be filed with victims protected. I agree with that. Trying to look for more questions.
I might scroll up a little bit.
There's a lot of questions up there.
Let's take a look. How's she paying? How is she paying? We talk. Is
That's
this
a great
taxpayer
question.
money? Where's this? How's this money like transferred from one?
So out of our general fund, where it could go to something like education or public safety or teachers or public facilities or Parks and Rec, it comes out of that fund. So when we talk about where money, we didn't have $37 million to fund projects. It could have been $2 more million to fund something else if it wasn't for that.
How is there what's I'm looking for? Like a receipt that comes out every month showing what the county spent?
Actually, there is. It's called our quarterly budget review. We just had one on Tuesday where they go through
the quarterly one. Okay.
Because a lot of times, especially with income and property taxes, it's an estimate until you get the actual from the comptroller's office. So we get quarterly updates on how we're spending how the money's being spent. Whether like our agencies, like the biggest two would be the Sheriff's Department and the Board of Education. If we allocate them this much money in the budget, if we're halfway through the year, how much they've spent. Do they need? Because a lot of times, this is a huge check and balance, and I don't think people realize with our agencies, when we adopt our budget, it's very specific. If any of the agencies want to move money around into different spots, they have to come for approval from the Board of Commissioners. Like say that there's some money that we allocated for one project with the Sheriff's Department, but they turn around, don't want that one, but they want another project. They come before the Board of Commissioners, and we agree to make an amendment to the budget so that they can do that. So there really is a lot of checks and balances in here in place with this home rule. It's just not stuff you talk about every day. But a lot of that stuff is going to disappear, transparency wise, because right now the biggest thing is we serve in the executive and the legislative branch. So the executive decisions we make, for the most part, unless it's personnel or something like contracts, is done publicly. Mm-hmm. That's not done in charter. So I just think there's a lot of, like I said before, ambiguity where there's a lot of unknowns. And I said this the other night, and I know it's a very sensitive topic, but it needs to be said. We have become the wealthiest minority community in the country as a home rule county. We took that from Prince George's County as a charter government. A large portion of the folks moving into our county are from Prince George's County because they want better schools, they want safer communities, and they want better government. And they see that here under our current form of government, home rule. So I think for people to act like, is it perfect? No. Do we need change? Yes. Do we completely scrap what we have? No. I think if anything we've seen over the last 2 years, and people can say, oh, the chaos, we wouldn't have this in charter. Let me tell you something. That chaos is democracy in action. There's a tagline under the Washington Post that says, democracy dies in the dark. That's the truth. The chaos you're seeing is because we're calling out our colleagues, and you're hearing about it, and you're seeing it. That's good government. To me, that is good government because there's nothing being hidden. It's like, oh, wow, they did that. Yeah. And they thought they were above the law. They thought they were above the law because they were an elected official. And we're like, no. And I would challenge anybody for the same for me or anybody else. That's when you run for these positions, you put yourself in the public limelight. Doesn't mean you should be abused every day, but you should be held accountable,
Yeah. I would say this about PG County is that there's a lot more as far as amenities and things of that sort than we have here in Charles. Now, I'm not saying that, BJ, that's your fault. But
I think,
and also you have a lot of people that live here that they don't work in the county; they're just here.
Well, it
and
goes
then
back
they're
to
in
this,
DC. Then it's like,
and it goes back to the discussion about the
living
base.
space and going from there.
No, absolutely. And I think that as we progress and move forward, I think the base is important. That's going to provide jobs.
Base always good revenue.
And I think when you talk about the infrastructure, we talked about this before. Mank. I feel like if I mention his name 3 times, it's like Beetlejuice will appear.
That's the one name I expect to hear tonight, but go on.
So, when he talked about whenever you said food baskets and internet, I would appear. Well, yeah, because I a big part of who I am is making sure people go to bed at night not hungry. And the other part is the internet. We've done an incredible job of getting service to a lot of people in this community. And you say, well, how does that have to do with economic development? It has a lot to do with economic development, has a lot to do with roads, and has a lot to do with the environment. One, economic development. People can live here they can have internet service in rural areas, and they can work telework. And if they're teleworking, that means they're not on the road, less people on the road. 2, environment. They're not pushing out as much emissions. They're not causing more wear and tear on our roads. That's the environmental impact. And quality of life. People are home, have an additional 4 hours. They can go, whether it's shopping locally, they can go out to lunch locally. They can spend time with their family.
Not fighting through traffic.
And that, but
yeah,
I think
me,
that,
I
but those
yeah.
are that's the groundwork you lay to improve the quality of life and attract business. It's not like you snap your fingers and it happens. Going and advocating to our congressmen and senators about the base and what's happening outside the base. It's not just one person. It's not just the county commissioners. It's not just the delegates. It's not just the mayor. It's all of us working together. And I really feel like there's a lot of people in positions that have been here for a while that should have been doing this for a long time, quite frankly. And they're the same ones advocating for charter. Like, come on, man. You were there. You've been here. I mean, start looking at some of these elected officials. Some of them have been in positions for 20-some years. And you're starting to say, well, why is this is the guy that I'm 6 years. And you're saying all these problems are because of home rule? No. I think there's a lot of blind eyes being turned to some folks and not calling out what it is a lack of work by some of our elected officials, quite frankly. So I'm happy about how we're moving forward, and I think we can continue to move forward as long as we have good, transparent government with good elected officials, honest elected officials.
Let's see some of these comments here too. Scroll up, scroll back. Oh, they have a conversation with among themselves. I'll let y'all do that. Deborah, yes, Deborah, you are right. I'm not gonna argue with that one, especially myself growing up in Bowie, Maryland.
We need to redo 210 and 301 to put in overpasses, just like was done in Clinton.
Can you control that?
That's more of state highway. But interesting having conversations with some of the business community. I think it's a double-edged sword because some of the business community think that'll make it so people won't stop and patronize businesses and go to businesses in those local areas. But if you look at like 228 Berry Road and 301, to me that's an ideal spot for an overpass because as you're coming down 301, it does. I mean, especially with, I will say, I have noticed with the new bridge down in the south end of the county, the Harry Nice Middleton Bridge,
right? It's
made traffic a lot better. But what also has done is it's increased the amount of traffic coming through the county. And La Plata now is oh man. I mean, I know I'm opening a can of worms, but the traffic in La Plata, and it's not just here. I mean, you go over into Charlotte Hall, over into St. Mary's, it's the same thing, man. And this is where I caution St. Mary's, and I'm not speaking for them or telling them what to do, but learn from some of the stuff that we've done. We should learn from some of the stuff Prince George's has done. And the reality is, has nothing to do with demographics. It has everything to do with the timing of the population increase. Prince George's County's population boom was, 50 years ago? Now ours is here. So it's not about the demographics. It's about the timing. And where we are now population-wise, I mean, St. Mary's is going to be there too. So, I mean, you have to look at things like from a bigger picture and like what's best in 301 through La Plata. That's another one. Is it's growing and it's just a lot more people. And it's good for business because, I mean, you look at places like the Charles and La Plata, the Rad House, a bunch of places. I mean, more people.
Rad House, my man Josh runs that thing.
Yeah, so
fantastic dude.
So yeah, and so you're seeing that it's helping business because there's more population here, but you can't solely base the ability for businesses to come here based on rooftops. Because if that was the case, and I always use the example of over in Bryan's Road. 30 years ago, we had less people in Bryan's Road, and we had 2 grocery stores. So now we have more population, but 1 grocery store.
That food line. So it's not necessarily about population, it's about quality of life. It's about, are we putting things in place where people can live, work, and play here, not just throwing up houses. And I think that's some of the challenge. And you talk about special interest, that's a huge special interest. The reality is developers make a lot more money nowadays off of residential than they do off of commercial. And the bigger the multifamily homes is really where they make their money. And I think as you sit back and there's nothing wrong with having diversity of housing, but we have to hold them accountable. We have to make sure that the standards that we're allowing folks to build in our community
is up to par. People, just because they make less money doesn't mean they deserve less resources or less standard of living, quite frankly.
Carlos, can we get street lights?
Depends on where it's at. I mean, of course you can. I mean, I know that Southern Maryland Electric, and I just say this from experience, you can, if you own the property and you have a electric line that's on your property, you can get them to put up like a street light in communities.
You say if you own the electric?
Like if you say there's an electric pole, I mean, I say this because I live on a farm. If there's like numerous electric poles that go down your road and you own that portion of where the electric pole is, they'll put, you have to pay for it. You have to pay a monthly whatever for the light, but they'll put a light up where at night it kind of lights up like a street light.
So if I would
say right here in front of your house, you had a electric pole that went up. It was owned by Smeco. You call them up and say, "Hey, I want to put a street light that times it comes on at night when it gets dark and goes off in the morning." You could do that.
Well, I guess I don't think he's really talking about that. He's more so like these back roads that have no street lights, and it's kind of dangerous to drive at late at night if someone's going 10 miles
like
over.
where I'm coming from, down south in the south end of the county. Yeah, I recognize that, and
228 and all that.
I mean, it comes at a cost. Somebody's got to pay for the juice. Somebody's got to pay for the electricity. So, is it possible on a state road? Probably have to go through the state. It's a little different, but I'm sure it's not impossible. It's not impossible.
Is that something I could just bring up to the?
You could. I mean, you're bringing it up now. So if you follow up with me, just shoot me a text message. I can find give me a specific road, and I can check with the state with Ashley, one young lady that works for SHA, and say, hey, what's the likelihood that we could get? I mean, this is how it's supposed to work. Honestly, there are things I get calls about all the time that I really don't have control over, but I put you in contact, or I will reach out as your commissioner and say, hey, State Highway, can we put 3 lights on between Beal Hill Road and the county line? Is that something we can do? And they'll respond. I mean, usually that correspondence goes back to the public.
Well, you got us internet, you got us, you bring us food, and now you get us electricity.
Man, watch it now. Some people.
Oh man, no, but seriously though, I agree with you. That's how it should be, and I'll follow up because I got a few questions with that.
And you know what's interesting is
especially this 4-way stop up here.
I had, I bring this conversation up because it was a good conversation. I was talking to this young lady that came out from this meeting we had and was asking me questions about the executive and the administrator and control and power and all this stuff. And I said, really, my opinion is with the county president, we don't have to go. If we're talking about wanting a president to be in the office more, to me, the money isn't that big of a deal. It's $50,000, I think, is our salaries. But if somebody's going to do this as a full-time position, like with the commissioner president, give him a better salary. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. We don't have to throw out our whole form of government. Pay him a little more money so it makes it so that can be his or her only full-time job. Because really, $50,000 for a full-time job isn't a lot. I mean, it's not a lot of money to be running a county. So I wouldn't
especially
be
where the county's heading in the
growth.
growth.
And I wouldn't be opposed to upping the salary of the president, reflective upon the responsibilities, because it does deserve a little bit more. But that doesn't mean we throw out the entire form of government. But these are the type of conversations that we can have,
Make it competitive with the, especially with the local area.
Yeah.
All right, we got about 15 minutes. Throw me your questions in here. What about water? I saw it. I was actually going right back to that. That's great.
As I pick up my water bottle.
David, yes, I saw you twice, my guy.
I will tell you that there's 2 ways to get water, essentially, for housing, commercial. One is to draw it out of the ground, which is regulated by the state. There's a certain amount of gallons from a municipal standpoint you can draw out of the ground. Or you can buy it from WSSC, and that's expensive. And we are running out of water.
We're running out of water?
Yes.
What, Charles County?
Yes.
Aren't we right by water?
That's salt water, drinking water. Now, a desalination plant, that's a concept, but it's expensive. We draw water out of the river.
It would create jobs, wouldn't it?
It would, but it's like a huge price tag on that. I think the last one was I want to say in the millions, like 3-figure millions of dollars. So the problem we're running into now is, and I'm not trying to pick on La Plata, but that's where a lot of the growth is coming. And essentially, there's only so much water we can draw out of the ground. And now we're going to have to start buying water. It's getting very expensive, not just to purchase water, but also to maintain the lines that are providing water to the citizens. And when we were last budget season, we were looking at the price of what people are paying for water. It's steadily going up. Why? Because the cost of providing service for water is going up. It's incredibly expensive. And you talk about people in the more rural districts that have well and septic. They're drawing water just for their well. I don't know what are you on water and sewer here or
Septic. Water. Yeah. Well. Yeah.
you have your own well? Mm-hmm. So a lot of people's wells are going dry because we're digging deeper and drawing more water.
I'm aware.
And that's where the concern about the Russian high density and high volume residential development is concerning, because you have people not only running out of water, but there's a long wait time to get wells put in. And this affects not only people that are on public water and sewer, but on private water because of what we just talked about. And these are the real issues we should be talking about. This other stuff, I mean, I get it's important, but this is the real important stuff. Like, you don't get water, you don't live. Mm-hmm. And I think looking around the country at how this is impacting other areas, like in California and even like in Washington, D.C., and I just think these are the what I call unsexy conversations, but the much needed conversations, because it's a real issue for us.
Donna's got a question here. Why is there a massive increase in commissioners approving bids for developers to build residential rental projects? We need infrastructure before more housing.
So I would say that we didn't talk about Docket 90. That was what we left off. So that's
we were kind of moving around that, but yeah.
So St. Charles has Docket 90, which is basically a PUD. Planned Unit Development has a certain number of homes that are allowed to be built. That's kind of wrapping up. La Plata, I would say, is the next horizon as a municipality. They have the ability to regulate their own residential development within the town, and it's a lot of housing going in La Plata.
A lot more apartments, yep.
From my personal perspective, we have limited control in the town of La Plata, but I voiced my concerns. It goes back to the water issue. It's straining our infrastructure. Whenever it's a balance between providing homes for people, but not for new folks that want to move in the community, but we also have to keep up the quality of life for the people that already live here. Mm-hmm. And I think we can't let the carpet get before the horse, because if we continue to build at the rate that some want to build, the quality of life here is not going to improve. It's going to get worse, because we have to take care of the folks that are already here before we start inviting more people into our community. And I think the amount of services that we need and people are demanding, hey, adorable little girl just walked in.
Yo, what's going on, baby? How you doing?
The amount of services people are demanding has increased. The amount of services people demanded 30 years ago is not nearly as much as they're demanding now. And that comes with a cost. So more people, more services, more money. And quite frankly, when we
Hold on 1 second. G, go back inside. Put those scissors now.
It's all good.
I'll be in about 10
His
minutes.
assistant. How are you? She's all right. She ain't hurt nothing.
Yeah, just don't pull on any cords, girl.
So I think Fiscal did a study about 3 years ago where they looked at where the break-even point was for homes, where the amount of taxes that folks pay compared to the services they demand, where that break-even point is. Believe it or not, it was around $450,000. A home that's worth $450,000 pays enough taxes to cover the services they demand. Now, anything under $450,000, it costs the taxpayers to supplement and subsidize that. So when you talk about apartments, that costs the taxpayers money. Mm-hmm. When you talk about housing that is below that 450 mark, it's a fine balance between providing affordable housing for people that work here and live here and not overtaxing people to pay for it. Because it's almost like you're making a housable affording for one group, but you're outpricing other people to those groups, if you follow where I'm saying. Well, like, you're just making the taxes so high that people can't afford to live here. So
when's it over?
Docket 90 has got that. Well, what's before us right now is kind of the last two phases of it. And quite frankly, I have challenges with a couple of the amendments they want in front of us right now. It's a pretty hot topic. So
how many years we're talking?
Oh, man. I think 5 to 7 probably to finish everything out.
How many units? That's
a good technical question. It's in the thousands. And
that's La Plata or across the county?
Those houses are in St. Charles. I don't know the exact number for the town of La Plata, but I know it's in the thousands.
Let's see, Deborah, 450K 3 years ago means 600K
Could
plus
very
now.
well be the case.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, those conversations. That's something we definitely got to have more of. The water one is Very, very interesting.
What authority does the county have if the town builds at a rate that strains infrastructure? Well, the water is the biggest, I guess, factor we have over in the town of La Plata.
Voices. Is Commissioner Collins planning on recusing himself from voting on Dr. 90 due to the ethics violation with Attorney Steve Scott?
That's a question you have to ask Commissioner Collins. That's a good question, but I don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you.
Let's see. What year was that study? David says that study was outdated.
Yeah, it's probably 4 years old, so it probably is high. The amount of a home to break even is probably higher than 450 now.
Teachers have left the profession in droves over the past few years. Police officer availability is also a big problem. Anything you could do with that as D1 commissioner?
I think it goes back to the amount of money we spend on this charter. That money, if we have the money to spend on charter, we have to spend on the $37 million in public safety and education we didn't fund. Because the sheriff and the Board of Education didn't just give us those projects because they don't need it. They need it. So if we have the money for charter, that $6 million can go to backfill some of those needs. Quite frankly, I'm just keeping it real here. I mean, yes, we can do more, but a lot of it is going to depend on how people vote at the ballot box, and not just people need to get out and vote. And I will say, I'm not going to tell you how I'm voting. I'm opposed to question A, against question A. I mean, I think, and that's the charter question. I really think this is going to be a turning point for the county. I don't think people realize the implications of this moving forward, not just in transparency and accountability in government, going the opposite way we need it to go, but the cost. People are retiring and fleeing the state. And it was interesting. I had a presentation about funding coming from the state, and they were talking about how the amount of jobs and good paying jobs that have gone up, like the amount that people are getting paid in salaries has gone up, and income has gone up, but the amount of tax revenue collected from income tax is going down. And I said, well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. I said, depending on where you are in the state of Maryland, people are working in the state, but they're living in other states where it's lower taxes. They're living in whether it's Virginia or Pennsylvania or Delaware, because we're so close to those states. They can work here, drive 2-3 hours or less than that in some instances into a state that pays a hell of a lot less in taxes and keep alive in their pocket. We should be really looking at how do we retain those folks to live here, because that money is leaving the state, leaving the county. I mean, these are things you got to think about.
I thought that's more so like a state issue, because I know a couple of my guys that are retired, they can get taxed a certain amount of money on their retirement, but I think with Westmore, I think it's went up some. And I know,
but I guess that's what I'm saying is at the local level.
But can you do anything with that? Is that more state level?
No, some of it's state level, but some of it's local level. Because if we reduce the amount of property taxes, that's a big difference too.
Yeah.
So our control mostly is over property taxes, and where it comes into play with income taxes is when the quality of life is high, and we become like, here's a great example: we become the wealthiest majority black community in the country. Well, that's because we have people with high incomes living here. And those high incomes generate more income taxes. And those income taxes, because they live in the county, come to our county by way of the state. So when you think about quality of life, that's important to be able to generate that revenue, because there are other areas of the state where they don't generate that kind of revenue, and we somewhat subsidize them statewide. Mm-hmm. And if you start thinking about it, that's really not fair to our county. If we have people moving here making more money, that money should come to our county. But this is a whole state level conversation, because the formula of how state funding goes out, especially under the blueprint, I think people would be shocked that the more successful you are as a county, the less money you get.
So you'll take care of that once you get to Annapolis.
That was slick. That was slick. You mean the state house or the... No,
you tell me.
No, I won't go there. It's
all right.
A whole rumor.
Yo, we got about 5 minutes. I want to make sure we grab a few questions on the way out. Yep, take what you want.
Will you comment on answering public comments during the time allotted in the next commissioner meeting? I can do that. I've been a big proponent. If I forget, David, I'm sorry. When people take the time to come into our commissioner meeting and make public comment, we should have the respect for them to be able to at least have a certain amount of time to respond to them that same day.
I agree.
And absolutely. I have a real big problem with that, because that's been used against us, saying, well, in charter, we can require that. Like, we can do it right now. Those 3 voted for us not to be able to respond to it, which is a bunch of baloney. If you have 20 people that show up and have all this, all these concerns, I should at least be able to say, thank you for bringing this to my attention. I really am going to look into it. Or this is how I feel about it. I mean, it's about respect for the taxpayers. And I just feel like it's really lacking, not in the form of government, but by some of my colleagues. So, yes, I mean, I've been for it from the beginning.
Let's see, what else? Anything you want to just take on? We can go from there.
We commit to answering
voices, the T-shirts. Yeah, I got to. You asked about that last week. We'll talk. You
got T-shirts?
You wore one at the board meeting?
Oh, man, I don't know if I can do that. You got me. I think I was pushing it wearing this Caps shirt.
Hey, you got it. Why have my questions been answered from 2 months ago?
What 8 questions? Oh, my gosh.
I don't know.
What 8 questions did you have from 2 months ago? Oh, my Lord.
Let's see. Carlos, why are developers allowed to continue to build when it is known they are building subpar housing?
Well, that's part of what's going on with Docket 90 right now. I can't officially say a lot of things, but what I can say is that I recognize I've actually been out and toured some of the houses over in some of these new neighborhoods over off of St. Charles Parkway, and I've seen it, and that's where a lot of my challenge to the developers, because quite frankly, I know some people will say, well, they're 2 different issues. Well, to me, they're not. You're coming back to me for a change. You need to go back to those people in this community that pay good money for these homes and fix their problems. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got some folks, they're pulling up their sod and showing me gravel. It's like there was sod thrown down on a gravel pit. Like, come on, man. And it's really it really frustrates me because folks deserve better, and they deserve an elected official to go out there and actually see it. So I can tell you, I'm trying to, again, there's a lot of lawyers involved watching things, so sometimes I got to be careful in how I articulate things. But I can tell you, I agree with Carlos. They need to be held accountable for the homes that are up. I have a real big problem with this school issue, with them moving this school out of this community when people bought homes over there and expected a middle school and an elementary school within walking distance. And then all of a sudden we find out, well, we didn't have enough acreage. Well, when did you know that? Why didn't you cut out some of the homes so the elementary school could go, or the middle school could go right there?
Which location was this?
This is the one off St. Charles Parkway, the newest development, and the newest. And this is part of some of the amendments to Docket 90 that I have. What's the solution to fix it? Hold them accountable. Quite frankly.
I'll send a copy to Ricky to share during public comments. So when public comments happen, do you get a chance to respond to it?
I would love, Mr. Terry, to answer you right there that day, but my 3 colleagues won't allow it.
So you can't.
I can't answer them right then and there because they voted not to allow us to do it.
What about the next day?
Like 3 weeks later, I don't feel that's effective, but I'll answer it.
You had to wait. You had to wait a couple
whenever our next meeting is when we gotta wait. Which is, and so I would say to Mr. Terry, why don't you ask President Collins, Commissioner Patterson, and Commissioner Coates why they won't allow us to respond to you all? It's not my issue.
What is question 1?
Question 1. Where's
Crystal. Crystal replying to Crystal. They're busy tonight fighting question 1 with.
I don't know. I have to look that one up.
Thank Commissioner Bolin for having the courage to ask questions on live for CCGTV.
And again, I say I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem answering questions. I don't have a problem doing it publicly. My censorship I have a problem with, and I feel like us not being able to respond to folks when they come in. I actually agree with Derek on this. We should respond. We shouldn't just stand there like and just No, I want to be able to say something. It's just really sad that we can't.
Next man up. Question 1: take away parents' rights in schools is question 1.
I don't know. I have to get the details of that. I don't want to comment on it until I understand the question.
Okay.
So,
how can I reach out to you if I don't have your cell phone number? If I don't know the number to your office, or what is the number to your office?
Oh, that's a great question.
What hours do you work? Do you work weekends?
According to my wife, 7 days a week, from 6 o'clock in the morning until about, what time is it now? 9 o'clock at night. Bowling, BOWLING, with a second G on the end, at charlescountymd.org.
And what's your
.gov, not gov.
How about office number?
Ooh, I don't know that off the top of my head.
Can someone drop that email in the chat if y'all get a chance to? I definitely.
I mean, I'm always available. You can reach out to me, email me, Facebook. Everybody and their brother comments on that. So.
We get problems from all over the county. D2, D3.
D4. I just try to be responsive. I'm just trying to make sure I didn't miss any comments. So.
Oh, don't worry about it. They'll just tell you tomorrow. No, but for real though, anybody, I want to make sure we didn't get out of here without.
Well, other than that, I mean, I appreciate the opportunity to come here talk to you, Ricky. I mean, there's a lot going on in the county. It seems like people are engaged in this charter amendment question, and I just really think keeping our home rule is the right way to go. And hopefully, I've spoken. I have a town hall on October 4th at the Waldorf Senior Center. I'll be giving away some food bags.
What's new?
Huh?
So what's new?
And October 24th, I'll be in Bryan's Road at the firehouse doing it. And then I have another one in November. I think that is one of the fire stations up in Waldorf that we're going to do it again. Just trying to reach as many people as we can. We've had some where we've had 50, 60 people. We've had some where we've had 10 people. And some of the smaller ones, we've actually sat down just like in a circle and just had some real, one-on-one conversations trying to figure out. And please come out to these town halls and grab a bag of fresh veggies. I know some people like to stir the pot about. Rest assured, your food is safe. I think it's really a sad, and I said it, man, it is a sad day when you are attacking people for giving away free food. And not to, and
Got that thing
to,
laced.
to make a statement that is not accurate or completely transparent and is vague is disturbing, because there are so many regulations for food and what we put in our food and how we grow our food, and we have the safest food in the world, and this county produces an abundant amount of fresh food that just needs to find a way to get to the people that need it. And anybody that tries to intimidate, scare, or put out half-truths so people don't access that food should be ashamed of themselves. And I'm not afraid to say it to their face. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Who said this?
Mr. Tross. And he put people's addresses out there, and it just was, I had a real problem with that. And he's not telling the truth, the full story. It's kind of a half-truth. And to do that, are you really looking out for the best interest of this community? I mean, there are people out here that are starving. There are families out here that can barely put food on the table. And there are good people out here that are trying to provide opportunity for them to get healthy food for free. And you're going to taint that? Trust me, no farmer would ever provide food that would ever hurt anybody. I can tell you that. There's some of the hardest working, most giving people in the world. And to have that even as a thought process, and to use your platform and to brag about how many people follow your page, and then to put some trash out like that, and I'll call it what it was, trash. Mm-hmm. And people, if they don't hear, it's like attention getter. And if people don't understand the full story, you have a responsibility when you put stuff out like that, especially when it's involving people's food, to be transparent about the whole story. And I'll tell you, and people aren't even probably gonna understand, but these biosolids, the micro nutrients that are put on land, it's very heavily regulated. Mm-hmm. They can't be put on land that's going to be for human consumption. It has to be put on something like corn, like it's like field corn, or grassland or something like that. And the reality is that it's a product that we put out as people, and it's got to go somewhere. And do we heavily regulate it at the state level? Yes. At the federal level? Yes. Is it tested? Yes. Is it land tested? Yes. And just to do it, it's very disingenuous. And to pull all these things in, because no matter what, when this is all said and done, this charter thing, we all have to live together. We all have to go in the grocery store together. We all have to go shop together. Our kids are going to the same schools. We're on the same roads. And it's just do better. Just do better. Just do better. Especially when you have a voice and influence. Just do better. I can't even put it any better than that.
Hey, there it is.
So,
everybody saying thank us. No, thank you all. Honestly, your questions are great. Every single time we do this, every time I do this, I try to learn from everybody in the comments section one way or another. Financial, anything when going on in the community. So y'all keep me hip to a lot of things, and I definitely appreciate it. As far as being why, we should be up. Let's see. I got like 4 podcasts I got to cut up. Okay. I got Derek's last week. I still got Keontae's that I did. I still got some from AJ too. So, and then I got this one. So, I like to drop reels and clips. Not trying to essentially. What's the word I'm looking for? I got the braces. Yeah,
So will this one go out like just the whole thing? Like you'll make it available and then you'll do some other ones?
Oh, I mean, it's available now, but then I'd like to cut up on like Reels, TikTok.
But I mean, like after today, like are people going to be able to click on it and watch it like tomorrow?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's
Right, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitch.
And I would encourage people to watch it because I mean, a lot of this information, it's one thing, you know, when we have these town halls, and I understand the reality of the world we live in. People have athletics for their children. They're driving home from work. They got things going on. They're trying to put food on the table. So these forums provide an opportunity for people to hear and ask questions and answer questions. And it's hopefully enlightening to the people out there that just don't know enough about or want to know more about anything related to government. That's why I'm always willing to come on. I honestly like to probably do this more at the county level, to not taking away business from you. But
you know what? I would say this. I wish more people that were sitting in seats currently that was an election year would have conversations.
But why would, I guess my question is, why wouldn't you want to? Why wouldn't you want the people to understand? Like literally, I show up in a Capitol, so I'm a regular person. I'm not like some, you know, fictional character that doesn't have feelings or a family. I mean, like I literally go home to my wife saying, spend more time with me. You know, I go home to children that I'm trying to make sure are raised properly and are productive members of society. So it behooves me to come and have these conversations. And if you're hiding from it, you got something to hide.
High until re-election. Hopefully people
then everybody be a friend of re-election.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So.
Hey, I remember 2022.
I said to fly.
Okay. I remember 2026. Actually, one last question. If charter is passed, what will you do? Are you gonna run for
I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Executive?
I don't know what I'm gonna do. I really don't. I want to serve. If the will of the people is for this to pass, which I don't believe it is, but if it somehow miraculously passes, I'll have to reevaluate, talk to my family, see where we're gonna, you know, because I think it's taken a lot more power away and ability to represent the people of my district and the county. I think it's really, I don't know. It's a lot to think about because I really believe in what we're doing right now. Good, bad, or indifferent. I think that we can fix things in this current form and it's effective. I think there's going to be a lot of challenges. There's going to be a lot of frustration, I think, in a charter with the council. I think they're going to be frustrated because the lack of the ability to influence day-to-day operations. Because, quite frankly, the ability to influence day-to-day operations right now is 1 of 5 is productive. Like, I have no more power than any of the other 4. Like, it's just who's willing to put in the work and create the relationships and go out and find out who's the one. And I'll tell you, I do this all the time. I drive, it's not my district, but I'll drive through like Bannister or Lancaster and just look for stuff. Like, is there couches laying out near a dumpster that in a neighborhood where there's an apartment complex with a property management company? And I'll pick up the phone and I'll call over to public facility and say, hey, this is a problem. I'm going to send an email, just give you a heads up. This looks like crap. Whoever somebody needs to fix it. You know, and I usually, like we are supposed to do, you know, so you see my county administrator, I say, this is a problem. How are you going to handle it? That's up to, you know, the day-to-day operations, but I'm making you aware of it. And they know a week later, I'll drive through the same neighborhood and make sure it was fixed. Or a pothole. I mean, but those are things you're supposed to do. You're supposed to drive through neighborhoods, look for things that are a problem. Don't be reactive, be proactive.
Right.
And, you know, drive around, see what the issues are. And people are talking about high grass on a road. Okay, this is a problem. And to me, that leadership shows the people that are working with you, directors and managers, and even just, you know, employees that are at entry level, that if a commissioner's out here doing this, maybe I should take some invested role in how the quality of life of my community. But that
it's our community.
That
right.
comes.
We all live here.
But honestly, that comes from being a police commander. It'd be like 3:00 in the morning as a commander, and I'd wake up in the middle of the night and say, I'm gonna put my uniform on. I'm just gonna drive through my district. It'd be like 3:00 in the morning. You hear crickets, and all of a sudden, you know, car 3 or Sam 3 calls out with a traffic stop or with an area check, and like everybody freaks out. Like, but you need to keep them on your toes. I mean, they need to do their job. I mean, you need to be out there keeping the community safe, and no different than as a commissioner. You need to make sure that the job is being done. And believe it or not, employees respect that because I'm right beside them, making sure this is a better community.
In the trenches with them.
What's that?
I said in the trenches with them. I appreciate it.
So.
BJ, you can't hear this, but round of applause for you. Thank you very much for coming out, answering the questions of the people.
Absolutely.
Whether they loved it, whether they hate it, regardless, your face is here in front of a mic, so unfiltered. There's no script
Good, bad, or
beforehand.
indifferent, ugly.
Nah,
I'm here. Go Caps.
Hey.
Go Commanders.
Hey.
And my Nats are stinking right now, but I guess I can say go Orioles. But
hey, they'll be good in about 3 years. These baseball teams ain't forever to compete.
The Cowboys playing tonight. Who's winning the game?
They are. They're playing right now. I'm not sure.
Actually, probably the only time I'll be rooting for the Giants is tonight.
Oh yeah. Anything not. Actually, I didn't just come out of Dallas.
It's the only time I root for the Eagles.
That was about a month ago. Yeah. I can't. If it's not burgundy and gold, then yeah.
I'm on the same page on that one, bro.
Come on now. Hey, everybody, appreciate y'all. We'll see y'all very soon on the next one. Stay tuned. You can watch us back on Facebook. Watch it back on YouTube. You can watch it on the Twitch. Also, please share to your groups. Share to your people. I think you can make clips too through your own phone if you want to. Just don't clip anything together. It makes us look crazy. Just make it one uniform clip and let's go from there. So, I appreciate you all. Thank you very much, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Have a good night, everybody.
Yep.
That's pretty good, man.
Yo, solid. What's going on with you?
Yo, another day in the lab, baby. So it's always a good day.
Oh,
it's always a good day when we in the lab. You want policing to be better in your communities? The best policing that you can that can happen in any community are people that's actually from the community and that.
Once again, Rick, host BNY Podcast, now known as What Effing Week with BNY Dev. How you feeling, man?
I'm in here.
What's good? Comment section.
Yeah.
Do we drag our people down when sometimes they don't deserve it?
For sure, absolutely.
In this situation, this man deserves every single dragging that we can do because this is not an example of us.
But you got the angles. You got the knowledge of the game, bro.
This is where you're getting at, the IQ.
Down. Like he's telling you what's going on. How he was a bad husband. How he was just doing things his way. He's apologizing to his wife like, yo.
Pat ourselves on the back for that one because we ain't giving yourself awards. I mean, who is?
Yeah, no boy.
Hey.